Hi everyone, and welcome to today's WILDCARD Wednesday on Geotab's extendable services and how this can benefit your fleet. Thanks for joining us, and it's really great to have you here. My name is Sue Miller, and I'm a Senior Fleet Account Manager here at Geotab and your host for today's expert session. So our presenter today is Stephanie Lowe, Senior Trainer here at Geotab. She is joined by Deb Gill, our Senior Product Manager, and Anas Siddiqui, our Senior New Product Introduction Manager. So with that, Stephanie, take it away.
Thank you very much, Sue, and thank you very much for always keeping us organized. So welcome everyone to WILDCARD Wednesday. As Sue said, I'm Stephanie Lowe and I'll be your presenter today. And we're really excited to present extendable services to you. There's been a lot of effort put into this service and feature that we wanted to bring to you today. So let's get started here. So with extendable services, just an agenda of today's session, what we're going to be talking about is what is extendable services. We've put out the announcements and you've probably heard a lot of information about it. So we wanted to go through it with everyone, what it does, what are the benefits that this service can provide, as well as a walkthrough on how extendable services works and how to access it. Because now it will be available in the MyGeotab databases, and available users with the right accesses will be able to see this feature and enable it. So we want to go through a walkthrough with you. Also with this service, we want to go through a customer and reseller perspective of managing this service. So what resellers and customers like yourselves, as you're using this feature, some of the things that we want to make sure you're aware of. And then the key takeaways of this feature. So what is extendable services? So extendable services enables the creation of multiple paid subscriptions from a single Go device. So if you've got your Go device in the vehicle, and as we all know, we go into our MyGeotab databases to look at the data. Well, now with this service, you can extend that data into another MyGeotab database. But as we put on the second bullet here, customers now can access this feature to share some or all of their device data, depending on the rate plan that they want to choose to share with, into those additional MyGeotab databases. And it can be not just one, you can share or extend that data to multiple MyGeotab databases for any of your trusted partners or other organizations who may want to benefit from that data for their business as well. So as we talk about benefits of this feature, so you may think of yourselves as well as some use cases that you may think of how or why that you would want to extend that data to another database. Other parties want to have access to various elements of that telematics data coming from the Go device that we're collecting to support any additional services. For example, maybe within your own organization, you might have a maintenance department, and instead of necessarily having everyone access the same database, you can also have separate databases that you can put into, as well as insurance organizations. You may want to have a different database for them because they want a different rate plan or different data coming into it, so you can extend that data to other insurance organizations. Fleet management companies as well. You may have parent companies and lots of other subsidiaries as an example that you may want to have data going into other databases, as well as manufacturers. So they may want to obtain or get information that we can provide from the Go device into another database for them to access. So those are just some examples of other organizations or other parties that we may want to extend that data to them. Also, the extendable services allows for sharing of that data into other databases without providing access to each party's private or confidential information. So for example, is that you have in the MyGeotab database, the primary database has driver names or vehicle names, and maybe that other organization doesn't need to know that private information or confidential. It would be more secure if it was in a separate database. So with that principle of privacy and security is that you can have the data or private data not showing in the extended target database if necessary, right? So there's that flexibility in that respect and with security, as well as ability to share data on different rate plans. So for example, the primary database may have Pro Plus, but let's say for insurance, they only need to have base plan of GPS location or basic information. So you can have that flexibility with this service where you can say that the target database will only have a certain amount of data coming from that rate plan versus the primary database has a different rate plan. So there's that flexibility and that benefit with this service. So the workflow we wanted to just illustrate to you here is that so you've got the primary MyGeotab database that Go device is into, and then they can, or users of that primary MyGeotab database can extend the data to another shared MyGeotab database, right? So you can have multiple. It doesn't mean just one, you can have as many, and it's unlimited that you want to share it with. But the primary database is the one who controls who can share. The next diagram that we put here is to illustrate. Now I know it may seem we wanted to just at least demonstrate to you the data flow. So you've got your Go device in the vehicles and it's going to our Geotab gateway servers. But it's not, when you extend that data, it's not that it's extending it from the primary database. It's actually coming straight from the servers, going to the primary database, as well as from there, going to any other shared target database. So we wanted to illustrate that it's not that the data is coming from the primary and then going to other shared target base databases. It's coming straight from the Geotab gateway servers to those other databases that you as the primary wants to share it with. And then users from those individual databases will access the data separately. Now, this slide that we put here is about the requirements. So this feature, this services, new services that are available to extend the data to other databases, there are some requirements, and the main ones is that you have to be in feature preview and your MyGeotab database has to be in release 2101. Now, both the user or the primary users from the primary database has to have these requirements, feature preview and 2101, in addition to the recipient or the target database users also have to be in feature preview and version 2101. Okay? So you need to have that equal requirements on both so that you both get to access this feature, but also to receive or accept this feature. Now for the audience, for some of you who may not be familiar with feature preview, I did want to just define that if you're not aware of it, is that feature preview is where we at Geotab are able to showcase new features and services so that you as Geotab users can access these features. So that's why with this particular extendable services, you need to make sure that your feature preview is on and your database version. And to turn on your feature preview, it is in your user options. So I wanted to mention that for those of you who are not familiar with feature preview. So as we mentioned there, the primary and the target databases must have that feature preview turned on for their user who's accessing it. The end users must also have the administrator access or the administrator security clearance in order to assign these particular security clearance features to particular users. And the two features in the security clearance, they're called administer device share and view device share. So you need those clearances in order to manage and administer this particular feature. Now we did put in a bullet on the slide here is note that filtering of data is not yet fully implemented. So as an example is if you shared your data to another target database, let's say in base plan, but you only want certain information out of that, that is not supported. So depending on what rate plan that you are sharing or extending that data to, that's what data is going to be sent or shared to. So we wanted to give you some screenshots and also what you will expect to see when you are in your MyGeotab database. So again, you've got your feature preview on and you've got your version of MyGeotab database at 2101. When you go into your vehicle list and you select on your particular vehicle, there is a new tab that you'll see here called Extended Services. When you go into here, you're going to click on Add Another Service and follow the screen in the respect of what rate plan you want to share the database to, and what is the shared target database you want, the name of it that you want to share it to. Once you do that, you can click on the checkbox and always remember to click Save. So this is the user of the primary database and what they'll see when they go into Vehicle Edit. Then once they click that checkbox and they click Save, it will send that request to the target database, and it will show you a screenshot of a pending acceptance in that respect, because now you sent that request off and it will show in yours as pending. Now with the primary database and the users is that if the target database user has not accepted it yet, they can cancel the extended request before it's been accepted. So in the primary database, the users do have the option of this red X to be able to cancel that request if they want to. But as it says here in the dialog box, once the recipient accepts the request, only the recipient's reseller can actually terminate it. So this just gives an option for the primary database users to cancel it before it's been accepted on the other side. And then the additional states that a primary database user would see is that once it is accepted, as you can see on the slide at the top, it's active. So now that that has been accepted in the shared target database, or you may have, or the primary user may have canceled or rejected, or even the other side may have rejected that sharing. So as the primary database users, you get to see your additional statuses within your own database. Now, if a target database does reject the particular shared request, there isn't a separate email notification or anything. It will all show in this section whether or not they rejected it or if it's active, if they have accepted it. So that's the screenshots and what a primary database user will now, we'll look at the other side, which is the target database now. So the primary user has sent that request over, and now the target database user will see a notification like this at the top of their MyG tab, and it will say that somebody has sent the request that they want to extend telematics data services to you. When you click on those boxes, then you will be able to get, as the target database user, to accept that. And with any vehicle or assets that you are putting to your database, you're able to name it. So as a default, when you go through the dialog box, it always will show you the primary database name first. So as you can see in this slide example, it came from ABC Company, and then you can put whatever vehicle name that you want after it. A recommendation or suggestion is that you do want to keep the primary database name so you know that that's a vehicle or an asset that is actually sharing in the vehicle name itself, but that is just a suggested recommendation, at least so that you see on the screenshot what it will actually do. So you always see the primary database name first, and then you can always put in whatever description you want. And then you can reject or accept it, as well as on the right-hand side is if multiple vehicles were also sent a request for. So you can fill in that information and reject or accept it. Once you do, as a target database user, accept that extended request, that's when the billing will start. And you'll get your pop-up that you successfully accepted the extended services. And we do want to remind that if you do want to terminate any of these shared services plan, is that you do have to contact your reseller. Now, something I wanted to point out as well here for target database users is that, as we all know, things happen and that you may want to remove that device from your database or that device data from your database. So typical and standard fashion, when you are in my Geotab and you're removing, if you are trying to remove a vehicle that has been shared, there will be a dialog box that you can see on this slide on the right-hand side, is that when you are removing the vehicle from the MyG Geotab database, you're not stopping the sharing rate plan. So you're just removing it from your database. So I wanted to point that out as well, is that you can remove it from the target database, but it doesn't stop the sharing. You do want to contact your reseller in order to terminate that shared plan if you don't want it anymore. And as we have a standard feature in Geotab, you can archive the vehicle data information so that you can keep that information in your database. Now for management, as we talked about, is with this service, and being able to, as a customer, access it, enable it, and so forth, but managing this feature. So something to keep in mind is that customers and users of the Geotab database, you cannot terminate the shared rate plan. As we mentioned in the slide before, you can remove it from your database, but it doesn't stop the rate plan billing. So the customer does have to contact the reseller to do that. Target shared database, so a user, you cannot reshare the data to another database. Only the primary database has that ability or access to share their data. With customers, they do have the ability to have shared plans with no primary database. So I wanted to explain that one because a question that had come up, and if this is possible, is that you could have a shared data going to a database, but the primary database may decide that they don't need that anymore. So they can actually terminate their main subscription plan, but the shared target database can keep it. So in that example, or in that use case scenario, is that if that's the scenario, the originating primary database owners or users will want to make sure you communicate to those shared databases that we're not requiring this device or this data anymore. We're not going to have it, but you may want to keep that, obviously, that Go device plugged in the vehicle so that that shared database can still collect the data. So that's just an example of a use case, but we wanted to at least point that out, is that it is possible to have a target shared database still receive data, but not the primary database, if that's the use case scenario. And then pricing is always a common point or question, is that you will want to contact your reseller about the shared rate plans and the pricing for it. For a reseller point of view or perspective, is that resellers can view the different extended shared service streams, where they can view as well as terminate, because as we mentioned in the previous points, is that a customer can't terminate a shared plan, but resellers have to do that. As well as the resellers can terminate, as I mentioned, the primary rate plan on a Go device, but can continue to keep services only to those shared databases. So it is possible to do that. So we also wanted to provide to you a roadmap of this feature. So as we talked about, we launched it in feature preview and your version of MyG Geotab database at 2101. And the plan, as you can see on the roadmap here, is what we want to ultimately achieve, is that to use this feature in the MyG Geotab databases and any legacy methods that device sharing was done previously, eventually will be deprecated. So this is our roadmap of what we want to achieve with this service. So now that you've heard all this information about extended services, and you can think about the use case scenarios of when you would need it and the benefits of it, but some suggested questions you may want to ask yourself is, when to use this particular service in your scenarios. So you'll want to ask yourself some questions. Does this secondary organization need access to the primary database of all the vehicle names and drivers and groups and so forth? So if you find that there is a secondary organization that still needs all that information, well, maybe you may want to look at not using extendable services, but something along the lines of permissions and accesses to the primary. So a couple of questions to ask yourself. However, next one, does the secondary organization need to have that flexibility to set up their own rules and their own reports and so forth in their own MyGeotab database? So this is where, in that example, extendable services is a great feature or service that they can utilize, so they can control and have that secure or privacy of situations and rules and everything that applies to them in their own database. And a third question does Geotab or the partners want to ensure separate invoicing? So because it's a different rate plan, or whatever its own rate plan, that you have the shared data going to the target database. If they want separate invoicing, then that accommodates using extendable services as well. So depending on your use case, some questions to maybe ask yourself whether or not you utilize this particular feature on your Go devices in order to provide those benefits of what the requirements are. Some key takeaways we definitely want from this feature everybody to know is that this functionality is available to all customers. Again, those requirements in feature preview, and if your Geotab database is in the 2101 release. Okay? Now we did put here excluding those databases that are within the US FedRAMP environment. So this feature is not available to those databases in that environment, but available to all customers otherwise. The Geotab primary and target databases do not need to exist within the same reseller. So it doesn't have to, it can be whatever other Geotab database that you want to share that data to that target database. There are no limitations in that respect. Extended services, it supports those 4 core Geotab rate plans for Go devices only. So the core rate plans we have are base, regulatory, pro, and pro plus. And this service right now is not currently supported for any OEM or third-party devices. So we are talking about strictly right now the Go devices. And then once the target database's Geotab user accepts that request, like we showed you those screenshots at the rate plan that they had specified, the billing starts. So once the acceptance happens, that's when the billing will start. As well as primary database can change. So if, let's say, the primary database owners, they move that device to another database, but they have some shared plans associated with that particular database and Go device, they do have to terminate any extended services first, and then change the database owner, and then set up the shared extended services again. Okay, because you have to stop that if you are moving it from another database. As we mentioned, primary database has access to extend or share that data services, and the shared target database can't reshare it to another. It's all controlled by the primary database users. You can extend, as we talked about, the different rate plan levels. So you can have different levels of rate plans. So maybe the Go device in the primary database is at base, but the shared target database may want the data that is provided on Pro Plus, or vice versa. So you have that flexibility. If, and the last bullet I put here is, if changes are required to a shared rate plan, the existing shared rate plan must be terminated first before you can change it. So then you have to send a new request in order to change that plan. So as an example, the shared target database is getting the base plan and they decide, well, maybe we want to have more data from our Pro Plus. You have to terminate the shared base plan rate, and then send another request for the new rate plan for that to be shared. You can't just edit what's been requested already. And that concludes all the information we wanted to present to you on extended services, and we wanted to open the floor to questions. So I'll bring it back to Sue.
Thank you, Stephanie. This is really a very interesting proposition for customers to take a look at. There are several questions, actually.
Great.
I'll start with, if the primary and secondary database are owned by separate resellers, who is billed for the secondary database?
Great question. If you have different resellers, is that the original, the primary owner Go device, they get billed for that rate plan, and the reseller of the shared target database, they will get billed for the second.
Okay. And when is pricing going to be available in MyAdmin for the shared pricing plans?
Yeah, the pricing will be available on MyAdmin. Actually, it should be available in a day or two.
Excellent, thank you. So given provisioning of this can be done by clients without resellers' action required, how are resellers alerted if a client were to activate extendable services?
So resellers are alerted. They have a daily notification report that the MyAdmin sends to them. So they'd be able to reconcile any new rate plans that were active on that daily report. Now it can be accessed through the MyAdmin reseller portal as well to run that report, so that you'd get that notification that way.
Okay. Can you give an example of a good use case for this service?
I don't know if there's a good one-size-fits-all use case. Really, the goal around providing this capability in the platform was to enable other sort of value-added services, value-added partners to have some more flexibility in their ability to deliver other services. You know, things like if you're working with a fleet management company and they're providing some service, whether it's around maintenance, you know, tracking maintenance, timing for your vehicles, even just having some notion of, you know, mileage or anything to do with leasing. Like the goal is that the possibilities are a bit endless, and really just wanting to ensure. I know a lot of customers today have been using our API or my Geotab SDK and allowing the creation of credentials on their own my Geotab, their primary My Geotab database, to be able to gain access to some of these other services. And really we want to start to open the door to, obviously we still want to support those partners because they're a vibrant and valuable part of our ecosystem and provide a lot of value to our larger solution, but wanting to ensure that there's some options around you know, controlling access in a little bit of a more granular way, wanting to be able to have a bit more definition around who has access to which vehicles and which data. So now you can do this on a vehicle by vehicle database as well in a bit more granular way as well. So I don't know if there's a great one size fits all. I know that we've had a lot of conversations to date around folks that are looking at maintenance. You know, Geotab's working with some of the auto manufacturers, tier 1 suppliers as well, who are also, you know, if customers are open to providing that information back to those types of vendors, there's, you know, scope for great features from coming out of those parties as well in future.
That's great. Thank you for that. We do have another question. If the target database users make a change on their side, such as with grouping, do those changes cascade back up to the primary database, or do those changes stay strictly on the target database side?
Those changes stay strictly on the target database. So remember that it's not linked. Anything that you do when it's going into its own database, you can have your own rules, your own names, your own drivers, all that separately. It doesn't cascade back to the primary database because it's not coming from the primary database. It's coming straight from the Geotab gateway servers.
And could you please go over what is required for me to access this service?
Definitely. So again, the requirements are feature preview. So to turn on your feature preview in your user options, you can do that in the My Geotab database. The top right-hand corner, you have your username. If you click on that in the drop-down, there's the options. When you open the options, you'll be able to turn the feature preview on for you as a user. But do remember that the receiving end, the target database user, also has to have feature preview on. Then you also want to ensure that your My Geotab database is also on the right version, which is 2101. To find that out, you go into, if you are administrator access and you have this option, on the left-hand side menu, you go to administration and then you click on about. The numbers in the middle will tell you what version your database is on.
Terrific. What is the advantage for the primary database / reseller?
Especially if you do have those partners. I mean, I can just, with experience, is that the partners you may be dealing with in our ecosystem or whatever the case may be, is that maybe they might want to also get the data from your vehicles, but in a different perspective. Just when you're asking even about a use case scenario, I'm just going to use an example of, let's say, insurance companies in that respect. Well, they don't necessarily need to know all the details of your drivers and the names and the accesses getting into the database, but they want to know about safety and information in that respect coming from hard acceleration and cornering and speeding and so forth. So in order for them to do their analysis of data coming from your devices, then you can extend that to them if they're one of your partners. So as Deb said, you know, the options or the use cases could be endless. It really depends on your, as the customer and the reseller, your requirements on what you need to get out from the Go devices.
Just to add to that point, with extendable services, now you can share data or extend the services of primary database to another database on a different rate plan. So on primary database, you have certain amount of data, but you want to share only limited amount of data on the target database. That can be done via extendable services. Previously, you could, if you're just adding another user on the primary database, they may have access to all the data which you have on that database. So it's a much more secure solution if you want to, isolate the data which a particular party can see or not.
And I'll add one more quickly. It's just the other benefit which that target or the secondary extended service party is providing some value back to the primary customer, whether it's directly or indirectly. And then now that they'll have a secondary space within a MyGeotab database, that target is now able to set up their own groups, rules, reporting that's customized to help them, you know, deliver whatever value-added service that they're providing, maintenance, warranty, who knows what it is, but they have that flexibility in their own MyGeotab space that's dedicated to them. So they still get the benefit of all the, you know, flexibility that MyGeotab has to offer, but there's no sort of crossing of the streams. There's no concern with that mucking up anything in your primary, you know, customer-focused MyGeotab instance.
Very good. A lot of great questions. Appreciate the participation from everybody. Oops, one more here. Are there marketing materials available to resellers, and where can we find them?
Sure, I can take that. Because the capability is under feature preview right now, we are sort of doing a slow roll on a proper marketing launch. So those artifacts are being developed at the moment, but they haven't, many of them haven't been released yet. We have some of these decks that are able to be shared, obviously, with our resellers to help them work with customers and answer questions themselves. And I would say if there's something particular that is being requested, if you are representing a reseller or need something on that order, feel free to reach out to your PAM. They know how to get in touch with us. And happy to make sure that if it's not already in our plan to be developed, then we can have some good feedback as to what other tools and artifacts you folks are looking for.
There is an extendable services user guide and reseller guide that will be available to you to review as well. In addition to, as what Deb had mentioned, as it's being developed and other marketing tools and things that you require, that you can reach out to us that will help, but those are being in development. But these are available to you for now.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Stephanie, Deb, and Anas. I really appreciate your presenting this to our audience today. I think that's a wrap for today's Wildcard Wednesday. So until next time, I'm Sue Miller, and on behalf of myself and everyone here at Geotab, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you all next time. Same Geotab time, same Geotab channel.